So I thought I'd preface this one by, I don't usually do this going into new Star Trek seasons. Maybe we did for Star Trek Discovery Season 2. But going into Star Trek Discovery Season 3 puts me in a very unique place where this is the first series I've strongly considered just not covering going into this one. So I find Discovery to be the worst of the Star Trek franchise that has to offer. I find Picard slightly more bearable just because I know Picard, and that's like enough for me to grab onto something, even though I think that they're basically the same show with different characters. They're tonally the same, they're written the same, they have the same problems. Discovery is not that for me. I sort of loathe Discovery in a lot of ways, and I'm saying I'm bringing this up at the start because it's tough. I didn't know if I could be fair judging this show because at this point,
this is like the long way of you saying, like, with all due respect to everything that you say after that of the show.
I'm in a place where the show really has to like knock me over for me to go like, okay, it did something there, because while I'm going to be watching this, there's always going to be in the back of my mind, they're going to fuck this up. Like even if this thing came, if even this came out great, if it was a great episode, we're going to be talking about That Hope Is You Part 1. It would need to be sustained for an entire season before I believe anything that has to do with this series. But that's my mental state about Discovery. I think you're more optimistic about, or you're more interested in Discovery, where I could maybe say that we actually have an opposite reaction to like Enterprise, where I would rather review Enterprise than Discovery, and you might be the opposite. You might prefer watching Discovery and talking about it.
Well, Enterprise has a mark off my book immediately because it doesn't have a chest symbol insignia. And this one, Star Trek Discovery Season 3, has one in the show and a new one in the credits, so I'm already in the bag for this show.
I know they knew what they had to do to get you on board, and they slathered it all over the episode. Insignias everywhere. But
I want to give it the benefit of the doubt because I don't want to come into it negative if I can avoid it. And with the setup they were going for, it's kind of a soft reboot, so I want to give it a little bit of leeway. So I have I don't know if I would say my expectations are higher, because I don't think that they are. I guess I should say my expectations are lower, because I feel like personally the only way they can go is up from the past two seasons for the most part.
They could just plateau. They could just be the same thing. So
sure.
It's hard to get worse. I do feel, I did want to just state it at the start that I just have a really hard time with this series. And spoilers, I kind of had the same hard time with this first episode. So why don't we just use that? We'll take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode. And then we'll come back and we'll break down That Hope Is You, Part 1.
True believer.
Yeah.
Time traveler.
Yeah.
I figured. Don't know how you came by whatever you used to get here. All time travel technology was destroyed after the Temporal Wars. Outlawed.
There was no other way. For me.
That Hope Is You, Part 1 is the first episode of the third season of Star Trek Discovery. It came out on the 15th of October, 2020. Written by Michelle Paradise, the new showrunner, Jenny Lumet and Alex Kurtzman, the grand poobah of Star Trek at this point. Directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi. In-universe date is not specifically known, but it's 3188. In this episode, Michael Burnham navigates a strange new galaxy 930 years in her future, looking for the rest of the Discovery crew. It's the season premiere, Star Trek Discovery's third season, where they've jumped ahead in time. Everything is different. Some things are the same. But positives here. Iceland's a beautiful country. Iceland is just gorgeous, and it's really strange. And obviously, it's weird that they use it for. It's not weird. It's understandable that they use it for all these like alien landscapes. And I assume that there's not 3 moons in the sky when you go to Iceland, and that was CG. But the rest of the water and the mountains and everything look very, very lovely. Very pretty place to be.
Yeah, I wonder if they take offense to that at all. So like you have a location scout who's like, "Hi, yeah, we're looking for like a desolate, alien-looking planet, kind of landscape. Can we shoot in your country, Iceland? Because it's beautiful, but it is."
Yeah, it's so much steam coming out of the ground.
It is weird here.
It is gorgeous. The show looks very nice. Looks a lot of color tinting is on par. The location shooting was very nice. The effects work, I think, is nice. I thought things looked nicer in some ways than they have previously, or at least if it's a first episode to come in. So things did look very nice. Iceland's very pretty. But I've been talking for a while. Why don't you lead off with That Hope Is You Part 1? Who's the hope about? Were you worried who the hope was going to be by the end of the episode? Did they shock you with the revelation?
No, it's pretty clear who the hope is and who the hope always is. I didn't realize that was the title. The title sounds like a jingle for a supermarket or something. That hope is you.
I think they're getting cute with the titles too, because I'm pretty sure the next episode is not part 2. I don't know if there is a part 2 to this, so I think they're
really?
getting. There's a later.
You know what? I bet it's like the finale is probably This Hope Is You Part 2 or something.
It could be. That. There's also an episode called Unification Part 3 in this season. So. Awesome. Yeah, so with this,
way to call back to one of the greats.
What'd you think about this one?
Honestly, I didn't hate it. I don't know if it was maybe the last 5 or 6 minutes or so doing most of the work for me, because I thought that I really liked that last scene with the Starfleet caretaker guy and putting up the flag and all that kind of stuff, and kind of the mission statement as to what the season was going to be about. The rest of it I thought was fine. I think Michael Burnham immediately has more chemistry with this new guy than she has in 2 seasons of Ash Tyler, so that's a plus.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought it was okay. It strangely reminded me a lot of Broken Bow for some reason. And I think it's because of the second half of it is kind of very similar to Broken Bow, where they have to go to this alien kind of like bartering place, and they end up in a gunfight.
Sure.
But it was the modern kind of like structure was very much on display here, where it's like they immediately have a kung fu fight, an extended kung fu fight, and then like they go to their alien place where they do some like sort of stock sci-fi stuff. And then because there's been too long in the script without a fight, they get into another fight. And
a fight to get out of there. A fight to
get out of there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I didn't hate it.
Then they jump to different locations in Iceland where they can fight a couple times.
Right.
And then they move on.
Yeah. I don't know why it took them. Well, I guess they kept sending guys after them, but I don't know why they didn't just stay in one place and just like, spawn camp and just
they do that. They do that in one thing. They turn around and wait. Yeah, and shoot them.
But yeah, I thought it was all right.
I think that it did nothing different for me in terms of I'm seeing a lot of hope on the internet and the Discord. I pay more attention to the Discord. We're generally happy with this one, and they think that maybe this will be the time that's different. And I feel it's like a jilted lover syndrome or something. It's like this time things are going to be better. I don't see any reason to believe that things are going to be better here. To me, this feels really extreme. And I think that people are looking for hope in a lot of strange places. Like and
that hope
is you,
Wes.
A big example here is The Burn is it's going to be the mystery of this season, right? Mm-hmm. So people are saying it's a little bit better than, specifically Kyle was saying it's a little bit better than the Red Angel mystery, because you at least know what the burn is from the start, where the Red Angel is just a word that you don't know until a couple episodes in, which is true. You know that the burn is the dilithium apparently spontaneously combusted, which I find funny I find that unintentionally funny, and it blew up all the ships in Starfleet, and now no one has any gas to get anywhere, so the Federation has crumbled because people can't go different places. To me, it feels very much like a Discovery plot. On a technical franchise level, The super nerdy response to this is not everyone uses dilithium. So there should be races out there that are still warping around, and this hasn't impacted anything. The Romulans should be able to get away with things.
I don't think that they've implied that isn't the case, have they?
They have not, but
it seems like the burn has specific connotations to the Federation as it stands right now.
Right. So the Federation going away basically is like all the cops went away, and now everything is just crime riddled and stuff like that. But it ties into, they can explain this, but you're still left with this position where the Federation is technologically destroyed by this, and they can't just adapt new technology exists is my takeaway. Like there's a way to do this, and I guess they got away with it by saying that the dilithium blew up all the ships or something like that. There's a couple of them left. The other thing, like that's once you get past that sort of weird technical nerdy stuff, which maybe isn't the most important thing, you're back to this religiously tinged vocabulary that New Trek uses. The Convent of Eight or whatever was in Picard. The Conclave of Eight. This is.
Oh, I had almost blocked that out of my memory.
This is just the burn, which is an event that has some sort of. It didn't happen all that long ago. It happened within a lifetime for people in the Star Trek universe 100 years ago, but no one knows anything about it, and no one has any information outside of this very religious-sounding event that changed everything. And you need a messiah to come in and correct the burn. And I look forward to the burn being linked to some inane thing that happened before, and like this is the whole reason that it all came about. But I'm really annoyed by this melodramatic grandstanding of vocabulary where everything is tinged with an idea of faith. There's just everyone has faith that this is the thing that has happened. I have faith that this is going to be coming back. And you had said, I'll throw this to you shortly. I'm just ranting now, but the last 5 minutes with that guy is purely religiously driven. Unless he's a hologram or some kind of AI, I have no understanding of how he spent 40 years sitting in that room doing that. He must be a hologram or something, I have to assume. Although he talks about his father. So
yeah, I don't think he's a hologram. I think he's just serves the story without being really thought out as to what the
I don't buy him.
Specifics of 40 years of that is.
Yeah, he's not insane. He should be insane sitting there looking at the same map all day, like going like, where the hell are the ships for 40 years? And he's treated as he is the high priest who's been waiting for his Messiah to come back. Yeah. The Messiah is now here.
He's like the knight in the Grail chamber, basically, in Indiana Jones.
And he has a tribalistic ritual that he cannot do because he is not anointed by God. He can't raise the flag. He's not a commissioned officer in Star Trek. Who gives a fuck? Like, there's no... buddy, this is not the time for regulations at this point. If you're trying to find other ships, just raise your fucking flag if that's what you've got to do. That's my big problem with this show, is that it moves away from a kind of realistic... humanistic look at things into a grand statement of the universe about everything, including Star Trek and Starfleet.
Yeah. It's not that Star Trek hasn't had its fair share of grandstanding in the past, but it's usually like brief. It's not like, a whole season arc worth of Picard. Well, I guess now it is, but of Picard grandstanding about the why the Federation is worth it on a spiritual level or something. That stuff, I find the burn, that thing and what you're talking about, a very modern trope that I generally can't stand, because I think it's a shorthanded mystery, and it pops up in so much sci-fi and genre stuff, and it's never satisfying, and it always sounds dumb. So it's always like the burn, or the awakening, or the destruction, or the envisioning, or
the happening.
These weird,
happening.
Yeah. These weird, like isolated words that don't mean anything, that are given this like grand weight as a mystery point.
Yep.
This one, at least, I guess, they're probably going to figure out. I kind of hope they don't go into like what actually happened and they just start rebuilding the Federation. Yeah. Because I actually was kind of relieved when they were like, the burn, and she's like, the burn, what's that? And he wasn't like, no one knows. It's just one day, all the stars went, or some shit like that. It's like, no, all the ships exploded and the Federation collapsed, and they call it the burn because everything burned at the same time. It's like, oh, okay, well, at least it has an explanation. I'm sure they're going to go into what happened or whatever. But I think you bring up what you're talking about brings up one of the problems that I did have with this, which is they've taken away, at least for this episode, all of the stuff that makes it Star Trek. And what that leaves you with is a stylistic void. So what they ended up doing is turning it even more into Star Wars. Like this is a Star Wars episode. This is
that opening ship where Book's ship is being chased by the Iridian, whatever his name is. It sounds exactly like Star Wars. It looks and sounds exactly like Star Wars. Yeah.
No, this entire episode feels like it could have been an episode of The Mandalorian or something.
Yep.
It's got the Han Solo character doing essentially exactly what Han Solo does in the first 3 movies of the Star Wars. It has that sort of like you're saying, this sort of religious overtone to the environment. It's got this governing body that's been smashed and replaced with like disarray. The way you have the Jedi Council's been blown up, and now the Empire rules everything, and everything's it's every man for himself and all that kind of stuff. And you've got
planets feel very isolated. Yeah, the planets are their own sort of standalone Mos Eisley-esque places where there's no overriding force. Even the Empire isn't particularly interested. It's just kind of wherever you go, there's chaos and crime and all that stuff.
Which I guess that's what's going to happen when you break up the Federation. But it just feels really tonally off. And when you build into that so many punch fight action scenes and gunfights and stuff, it feels more Star Wars than Star Trek. The other thing, I don't know if you wanted to jump off of that. I had one other thing I wanted to talk about.
Well, there's one thing about the burn. So sure. The problem I have with the burn, outside of those other things, is that it's what it does, and what I think that Star Trek as a franchise doesn't particularly do, or shouldn't do, or has not done to this point, is that the burn is not at least to this point, the burn is not a believable, grounded human reason for the Federation to fall apart, right? So sure. it's a basically an anti-miracle that happened. It's like some magical event happened, and it cast aside all the sinners. And now you are going to have to rebuild this with someone who's pure from it. And there's
one day all the androids just decided to start killing
just flying around. You know what I mean? Like, it's the problem is that there's no DS9 interesting level of, oh, well, this sort of conflict happened between the powers of the Alpha Quadrant. The Federation fell apart because it couldn't handle it. It's just a magical event happened, and it set the stage for everything that's going to happen here. I just don't find that interesting because I don't care. They're going to back end the burn into something. They're going to turn it into some kind of like related to Star Trek reason that this actually happened. But because there's no explanation of why something can fall apart like that, when you rebuild it, you don't have any lessons to learn because you didn't do anything that caused it to fall apart in the first place. So it's really just a matter of praising Burnham and the Discovery crew as great builders who can come in and save the day. But Starfleet in and of itself can't really learn anything from this because it's just a magic event that they couldn't have predicted, really, or they don't seem to have been able to predict it. Maybe they'll change that, but at this point, I need Book or someone to hint at that. All Book has is just, this thing happened, who knows? I don't ask questions. I don't know why. It'd be like you woke up the next day and you'd be like, I don't know what happened to the internet. It just disappeared one day. It's like, really? It's kind of important. They're like, yeah, it just disappeared. I'm concerned with saving endangered species, which we'll talk about shortly.
Everyone who knows how the internet works, all of a sudden just forgot how the internet works.
We call it the down. Everything just went down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's tough because, like, if you had Michael Burnham show up 1,000 years in the future and then she corners this guy and she's like, what happened? And he's like, well, 100 years ago, the Romulans moved into this section of space, and then the Changelings came over in this, and then teamed up with the Andorians and the blah, blah, blahs, and they came over here, and then the Suliban showed back up, and they formed a pact, and that pact decided to take on the Federation. It's like your eyes start to roll back in your head. Mm-hmm. So I kind of understand this want to come up with a quick thing that they can use to explain why the Federation blew up, especially because at this point in the show, we honestly don't know what the Federation's about, other than the speechifying that happens at the end of every season. Yeah. There's not really a lot of Starfleet Federation stuff happening in this show. So it's tough to get really specific about that stuff.
It is. I think Jakey's Gamer brought up in the Discord, in Burnham's time, the Federation has only been around for less than 100 years. So her shock that this thing is not around 1,000 years in the future is just a strange meta commentary from the it's like, of course, the Star Trek people can't admit that this would be the case, but it's in Burnham's terms, her emotionality about the Federation being gone. It would be like discovering that,
it's like if I woke up and I was from the past and I was like, where are all the Vikings?
Right.
Like, dude, the Vikings have been gone for 1,000 years. I'm like, what?
It's what? Where? If you woke up tomorrow and you're like, where is HBO Go? What has happened to HBO Go? And people are like, well, you only had it for a week. You're like, but still, I can't imagine a life without HBO Go. How dare it disappear from my life?
Yeah. Or, it's a weird thing, especially, 1,000 years is a long time.
Long time.
Did the Roman Empire last 1,000 years?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Our entire history of the Federation, that's 5 times the amount of history we have with the Star Trek Federation. I think they've been around for 200 years, basically.
Yeah, so I would have been more surprised if he was like, yeah, the Federation, that thing fell apart 900 years ago.
That's the weird thing about the timing of the burn. It happened fairly recently in the history of this thing. So, yeah.
I feel like that's you could argue that's nitpicking about the time, and because I think there's a lot of stuff you can nitpick in this as far as storytelling stuff goes, like that it's 1,000 years and why. I don't know. Is it realistic that the Federation, in the form that she would recognize, has existed for, I guess, 999 years or 900 years or something, and then it fell apart? I started laughing when she lands on the planet, this desolate planet, and then she has no idea where she is. I guess she thinks she's on Dilithium, but she types into her suit to do a scan for life forms. It has multiple life forms detected, and she freaks out as though she has just found a colony of people, and not that she's 20 feet away from a nest of land sharks that are about to eat her.
Well, that's just that. All that's to show that they beat Control. They defeated Control, because Control is going to destroy all life. So if there is any life, that means that Control has not accomplished its mission.
Sure. Fine. Whatever. I do think that they made some interesting choices as far as showing what this landscape actually was, and they play fast and loose with how long it takes to get around, because that ship landed, it had to have been 25 miles away from her.
Yeah.
And she walks there in the time it takes to cut away for commercial, and then has enough energy to beat a guy in a punch fight after she has trouble putting her bag over her shoulder, but she's got no problem kung fuing a guy.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, they do have, it didn't occur to me at the time how weird it was, but I was thinking about it later, how it's this desolate landscape, but then within walking distance is this bustling city.
It's just a hard cut. You just go from a rural Scottish landscape where sheep are running around to the biggest metropolis that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
There's no suburbs.
No, there's no suburbs. That was a little bit, if that stuff bothers you, that's going to stand out. The Andorians are the worst shots in the galaxy this side of the stormtroopers, because that scene where they're in Faneuil Hall shooting each other. She runs over to the dilithium desk.
Yeah, the K jewelers for dilithium.
Yeah, which is a straight shot away from where the Andorians are. They're hiding off to the side, and she runs into the line of fire and runs this, straight. And then the other guy follows her, and they're just standing there talking to each other while the Andorians are shooting straight directly at them and missing them by a mile. It's like they're standing there having a conversation while literally 15 lasers are just zapping around their heads.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay. I feel like you probably could have done that a little better.
Poor stage. What'd you think of the Orions and the Andorians? The Orions, it's bizarre that guy is not just painted green and that he has some kind of prosthetic on to make his face look that way. I
think this has continued the trend from the previous seasons where they are way over made up.
They look plasticky.
That one dude who was chasing down Book, he was cool looking. I thought he was neat looking. The Iridian or whatever. Yeah, they're from DS9 actually, if you recognize them. But. Oh, no kidding. No, some of the other full prosthetic characters, like the more alien stuff, looked really cool. But the Andorians just felt way overmade up. Like they felt really plasticky, like you said. And even the Orions, like he had like a fake nose and a fake chin on, so he couldn't really talk.
Yeah, I thought it was a whole fake face. I thought it was like it
might have been
plaster stuck over his face for no particular reason other than to. It looks like they're just trying to make the Orions look like they're like Clark Kent Superman types, but just cast a guy who looks like that and paint him green. It's not like that guy was carrying the episode or anything. It's just a strange choice.
Yeah, and the Andorians, I kind of go either way on the Andorians because like I wonder if it's not as drastic a change as the Klingons are. Yeah. But it does feel like they're still going over the top with it. Yeah.
I think they're overdone. They just look shiny. They just look like plastic people. And honestly, the biggest thing that I find is a failure is that when they're chasing Book and Burnham, they all just look like normal guys who are wearing Halloween masks chasing after people. Like
they probably were, honestly.
Yeah, it's not built to really show that kind of stuff. Although I did like seeing the Andorians and stuff like that. We'll see if it comes to anything.
Morn,
yeah, Morn's group is in there. There's a Cardassian in the group chasing them.
Oh, was there? Oh, yeah. I missed the Cardassian.
Yeah. So they're all there, and I don't have a problem with that. I hope that they kind of explain. They just say that the Andorians and the Orions are a new crime syndicate working together now that the Federation has fallen away. And if that's all it's going to be.
I do, like, I appreciate seeing all those different aliens and stuff, but I do wonder if that is the realistic way as to how this stuff would be going, where I feel like with the Federation destroyed, with these crime syndicates popping up, I feel like they're going to be a lot more singularly race-based, put it that way. You know what I mean? Like
more divided than the Federation was inclusive.
Yeah, like if you go by what this crime syndicate is, it's like more diverse than the actual Federation.
Yeah.
And with the breakdown of society and stuff, you'd think that, if the Orions are running everything, I guess they're working for the Orions and the Andorians or whatever, so I guess you could argue that makes sense, but
we didn't see who their boss was. They talked to their boss over the communicator who tells them
like Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's some ulterior motive going on there. Let's see, we talked about the burn, talked about that. One thing I did like is the ship design and the furniture design in the 32nd century. Sure. Yeah, the furniture was really great. It's kind of like those metal nail toys that you can put your hand in and it makes the hand out of it. When it drops away, it all kind of melts. And I think that's like a believable technology that they would have at this point. And that is how their society is built up of, especially this office building where the stuff can just fall apart like that. And I also like the controls of the ships and stuff and very futuristic. I don't know if it makes sense or not that Burnham can read the controls because it seemed totally alien to me. But she's like, oh, there's the engine, there's the warp core or whatever. But I did like how tactical it looked, or tactile, I guess. And the interior, like he has like a rich mahogany bedroom on his ship too, which is a nice touch. And his ship design is kind of neat. I've never seen anything like that in Star Trek. So I thought all the tech looked really nice and worked well.
Yeah, I had a problem with it Well, I guess it extends past the tech into the overall design, because I think, unfortunately, it speaks to them probably not thinking they were going to do this when they started the series in the first season. But the problem with the way that they've designed this show from the beginning is they've thrown stylistic canon out the window, right? So it's like, well, obviously we're not going to make everything look like it did in the 60s. We're going to update stuff and whatever. It's like, that's fine. No problem with that. However, they've made everything in the past so futuristic looking that when they jump 1,000 years into the future, their design sense is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get the sense that I was looking at anything that was felt really futuristic in design, or that, like, it's 1,000 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Like I said, that's the difference between right now and the Viking Age.
Mm-hmm.
And if a Viking jumped from AD 900 into the year 2020, his mind would probably explode at everything. I think everything was witchcraft. So like it's not the realism that bothers me. It's just that the stylistically they've hit a wall. Like, they can't go any slicker. They can't go any more futuristic. I'm kind of surprised they didn't go the other way and make things make things rougher and less futuristic.
Yeah.
They try to, I guess, if you want to say like that marketplace they go to, it looks like it's in a steam factory or something. Mm-hmm. But
it's an airport shopping center, like an airport hangar mixed with a steam factory.
Yeah, but even there, it's like they've got all these futuristic signs and holograms and stuff, and it doesn't feel stylistically any different than that place that Georgiou went.
Yeah, where she met the Orion.
1.
Yeah, or the Trill. Sorry, the Trill guy.
So yeah, I think stylistically you've run into a problem there where it's like everything still looks like it's looked for the past 2 seasons. There hasn't really been that much change.
Did you feel that way about the Starfleet office? I thought the Starfleet office was a better example of looking futuristic than the marketplace did.
Yes, I would agree. I like the Starfleet office a lot. I like the design of the chair, the floating chair and the floating desk and stuff. And that stuff I thought worked really well.
Yeah.
It's just the general feel of the world doesn't feel that different.
Well, it's the future because everyone's wearing a trench coat and running around in it's Blade Runner-y looking too. Yeah. The Blade Runner influence can't be ignored. That is that kind of criticism of like a way to solve a production problem and to solve a story problem is that in the future technological advancement has been rejected or something, which I feel like is a kind of modern story thread that you could have. I think that there's a kind of rejection of be it science or just, people are currently going through a phase of rejecting like social media or like kind of awakening to technological damage. Mm-hmm. They don't seem to want to do that at this point. So instead we're stuck in a future where the magical event has happened and the future doesn't look quite as magical as you would expect it to. One other thing,
like everything, all the tools and like control pads and shit that they're using, it feels like it's the same stuff they used on Picard, like that same holographic control.
The handguns are just phasers that go around your hand. It's
Mega Man guns.
Mega Man blasters. They have a little bit of like shotguns or something, but you don't know if that's new technology.
She kills a lot of people in this episode.
After being like, we stand for Federation values. Let me just nail this guy in the face with a disintegration ray.
She murdered at least 15 people.
So, one other thing about the burn. Maybe this is nitpicking. Why is there still dilithium around in this case? Well, isn't that just a strange setup? Like, so you're going to have to explain why it was only select dilithium that blew up, and you can still have dilithium and people sell it, and it's not rare enough where it is under Fort Knox lock and key. You just go to an open market and you can buy some of this stuff, and
I guess technically it's a black market.
Black market, sure.
But even still, there's a desk where it's just hanging out.
You just smash the glass and run off with it, like I've seen on all those Twitter videos of people who rob jewelry stores. It's not that hard, and that just seems. It's just Is that the show having something to say about dilithium that's going to be different, or is it the show being like, well, they need to be able to move around, so we have to have some dilithium exist so that they can power their ships?
Yeah,
Did you get a sense?
I think I don't have a problem with small amounts of it being around because clearly that's what the currency has become, at least in the black market. But yeah, you'd think that it would be a little bit more tightly guarded than just out on a desk like you've walked into like a geode store.
Yeah. That it powers the crime syndicate or something. That the crime syndicate having this is the reason that they're able to do things with it.
Right. Like, like Mad Max, the guys who
Right.
have all the water, the guys who have all the gas are the ones who run everything. You got
All the blood.
and they give you, yeah.
Yeah. I guess the other main thing, unless you have something else, the other main thing is just Burnham. It's a Burnham-centric episode. Did you have any thoughts about her? This episode made me just hyper conscious of the fact that the show's production staff has to know what they're doing, and I almost feel they're approaching Burnham's emotionality as kind of like a trolling parody at this point, because she gets emotional about everything. Every scene she's like crying about something, and I think they've just completely abandoned the Vulcan thing, unless they're saying that her overreaction is a byproduct of being raised by the Vulcans, but that's never been really made explicit or aware to her.
No, I don't think you're going to hear the fact that she was raised by Vulcans again in the show.
Yeah, it's now that Sarek is gone, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really liked the scene where they like doped her up and she starts acting giddy and weird. I thought that was a lot of fun. But yes, she is very over emotional in this episode. However, I will give it a little bit of a pass, because if there was ever a time for her to be over emotional, this is probably it. Just having jumped 1,000 years into the future, she's probably dealing with some stuff.
And to do that, I need to give away her Vulcan background. So you think people should just abandon the Vulcan backstory here?
Yes, I highly doubt that's going to really come up again, unless they need it for a specific plot point, and then they're going to pull it out of mothballs. But I don't think it's like going to influence any of her decisions, because it hasn't really up to this point. So,
because to me the problem here is that it's part of the vocabulary and the religious sentimentality of this. It's like everything is just so brilliant that you get brought to tears by it. There's no rational understanding of Burnham going like, let me figure out where I am, what the fuck's going on, and how do I find a discovery. She just sits on a rock and is like, I need to find the discovery. It's like, get fucking in motion then. Go, like, you're a Starfleet officer who's a Vulcan. Like, go walk around, not a Vulcan, but you know what I mean? Like, go walk around, because I'm not giving up on that. If you're going to make this the backbone of that character, then you have to, for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because it's like, it seems like one of those things where it's like, yeah, we started the show with this great concept, but we've got this guy and he's got a twin brother. And then after the first season, it's like this twin brother character really not doing anything. What if we have him move away? It's like, all right, now the twin brothers moved away and we never talk. It's like Sonny Crockett's son in Miami Vice. He's a big plot point for he's like 6 episodes out of the first season. And then after that, his wife moves away, and every now and then it comes up in conversation, but he never deals with his son, really.
Well, but I guess the argument that's a different character. This would be like Tony Soprano in the first episode of season 2 is no longer involved in the mob and never talks about his time in the mob anymore. And you're like, what the hell happened? Like he's a mafia capo. Why has this been completely abandoned? But I think that the problem for me is that it's not hard to make that connection there. If this series is so invested in the emotion of things, that is peak emotional exploration, because she's raised by the Vulcans. So there's a natural thing there, and she seems to. So I guess my other question to you: what is she overcompensating for when she goes under the drug influence? She says that I'm too helpful. I try to help everybody. I'm overcompensating. What's she overcompensating for?
I don't know. Life, man.
You must defend this. You must defend this series. That's the missing link to me. And I don't know how to explain it, but I can't stand her level of weeping to the point where she doesn't do something instead of getting down into the nuts and bolts of like how some military officer you'd assume would handle this situation and try to find people. It's just, I just find the emotion overly large and disconnected from the setup to the point where I roll my eyes every time it's just like, oh Jesus, here she goes again. Yeah. She's going to talk about something. Oh Jesus, here she goes again. But I might be overly negative about it at this point. I find it just tiresome. I find it really tiresome to watch and listen to.
Yeah, it does feel like it's turning into or it has been a dramatic crutch where it's like, if somebody kind of says something really emotionally charged with kind of tears in their eyes, then people respond to it as like, oh man, the drama.
Yeah.
I
honestly saw that in the Federation flag sequence at the end. A lot of the Reddit people were like, my eyes teared up when they raised the flag. It's honestly, like, what the fuck are we talking about?
That's the only time where I think they should have done it. Like maybe they should have done it a little bit at the beginning when she thinks Discovery's been destroyed, but then save that stuff. Like if she's in this 1,000 years in the future, she's lost her friends. She doesn't know if they're going to show up ever. They've been through this crazy gunfight and she's trying to adapt everything, and the Federation's been destroyed for 100 years, and then she finds this like one morsel of hope.
Yeah, her past life.
Yeah, and that's the thing that makes her break down. Sure, that's fine.
But she's the hope, Clay. She can't. The other guy can't be the hope. She has to be the hope.
I mean, the guy, the flag bearer there, getting choked up about it too, and I was like, I bought that. I was fine with that because it's like, the guy's
he's been waiting,
doing this for 40 years like a psychopath.
Yeah.
I did think when they at the beginning when they started with him and he had that box with the Starfleet insignia on it, I thought this was going to be like a Back to the Future 3 thing where Burnham shows up and he's like, I've been waiting here for 1,000 years to give you this box. It's been passed down through my family. And then it opens it up and it's like a note from Spock or something.
His bird alarm clock. I like the opening. Just it does a Groundhog Day of the guy's day is exactly the same every single time. If he's not shown to be insane or an AI or something like that, I find him extremely unbelievable. I just find him to be an absurd character in the face of things.
Yeah, you gotta cling on to something once you're.
Is that a pun?
Sure. Wordplay is what I do.
We talked about Burnham, talked about all that stuff. I thought there was one other thing that endangered species. I normally disregard people who say that this show is political because I don't think it has any point of view about anything, really, especially in the first 2 seasons. The endangered species things made me question that a bit. I understand the symbolism of Book is saving the endangered species that is the Federation at this point. I don't know if I get a sense of why in this new world he deems this a necessary thing to do, really. And I kind of like when everything's gone to shit, I just think of the George Carlin bit about environmentalism, and it's like, save the whales. We can't even fucking save ourselves. Like, what are these people talking about? This is insane. And his ability to talk to them is more magic. It's like, it was the first time I felt like there was some sort of political messaging going on where, environmentalism and everything is great, but it was layered onto a story in a way that didn't make sense to me naturally. And it felt like it was just kind of a cause du jour that they had stuck into it. I don't know. I have a hard time buying the environmental thing or the like saving the endangered worms and bringing them back to a planet.
I didn't really read into it that much. It just seemed like we need a scoundrel with a heart of gold moment. So the heart of gold is that, he's actually smuggling endangered species in order to save them or something. I didn't think it was that. I would be shocked if they were trying to make some grand statement by that. But you did bring up the talking to the animals thing. Which is another kind of weird religious thing, because like when she gets after they have their gunfight and she's been cut in the shoulder, he does this weird thing where he raises this plant up out of the water and gives her this weird the
ghost aloe vera plant that he summons.
And so he like his forehead starts glowing and he starts raising this thing, and the first thing she says is, "Were you praying?" She doesn't say, so what kind of alien are you on this alien show that I'm on? Generally, people that can do this stuff are aliens. And you are clearly, I don't know if he's human. She didn't even ask.
No.
She asked him if he was praying, and his answer is kinda. So yeah, it's weird. It's very strange to me that this series across the board, except for Lower Decks, has moved so far into this weird religious, not even allegory, but just like all the imagery is so religious.
Well, it seems the show seems to not believe that anything is possible except for just having faith in something. So the reason that you do something is that you're faith driven and that you know that the Federation is important. Therefore, you must. It's your holy duty to restore this thing. There's no discussion of the nuts and bolts of why this fell apart. What's replaced it? Is the Federation worth saving at this point? Does the Federation work in this new universe? Is any of this relevant? It just goes from, well, that doesn't exist, but it needs to exist. I believe that it should exist. I'm going to bring it back, and I have this belief that I'm going to do it. And it's the same with his talking to animals thing. It's not played up as a kind of like alien trope that he has. He's some sort of druid alien that can do this kind of thing where you go, which is fine, whatever, that's one thing or another. It's instead just he prays, he has a little glowing sigil on his head that lights up, and there's something magical has happened, and he can fix things and talks to animals.
And also they don't really, like, I get it that it's like a black market thing or whatever, but like he doesn't really go into why it's worse without the Federation at this point.
Right.
Like you're saying, like, does it need to come back? What situation are they in where like the Federation is necessary? Right. It's like if
she walks off and Book's like, wait, it's been replaced by something better. Like we don't need to do this. It's like
I'm sorry. I should have led with that. I'm sorry.
This is perfect. It's a perfect world.
It's like someone in 1989 or 1988 going into hypersleep for 1,000 years and waking up and being like, the Soviet Union is gone.
Yeah.
We need to bring it back. And everyone else is like, well, I mean,
it's been fine. Yeah, we're still standing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really going to help everything that's going on right now. And also, how does she plan? The Federation is a galactic wide. I'm just nitpicking at this point, but
yeah, it's a huge organization that she is to reunite.
It's not like she's trying to reopen the Chili's that closed.
Right. Yeah. Just sign this petition to reassemble this thing. It's a very large undertaking, and I just feel that the time passing stuff.
Sorry, there's no like. I get the concept of wanting to bring the Federation back, but again, there's no real explanation as to why they need it or what good it's going to bring, other than the fact that it was once there and now it's not.
What's been lost by the Federation, right? Besides the ships not being around and people can't get around, what has actually happened due to the loss of this? I guess they're hinting that with the crime syndicate kind of stuff. Like, I guess crime is supposed to be rampant. Is that your takeaway here?
I guess, because the other thing I was going to say was like, there's no indication of like a larger force that requires the Federation to deal with it.
Right.
It's like, what's the? We need to I don't know, pick anything, like even like Star Wars. It's like, well, we need the rebellion to fight it, to bring the rebellion together to fight against the Empire. It's like, okay, well, the Empire is the key there. You know what you're fighting against. This one's like, we need to get the rebellion together. For what? I don't know, because it seems like the thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out as they're going. I thought that, the one other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is I get not that it's any great revelation or anything, but we were right about her showing up before the Discovery shows up.
Still time for there to be a long time before Discovery shows up too. She has longer hair at some point.
It looks like, if I had to guess, it looks like they might, at least for the first 2 episodes, like jump back and forth. So like maybe the next episode might just be about Discovery.
Yeah.
But it looked like they were using the same time travel rules as the Kelvin movies, where they both went into the wormhole at the same time. but
where Nero and Spock went in at the same
Nero's
time.
Ship shows up 25 years before Spock does, and it did get me because my first thing that I thought was like, wait, they're using the same thing. Spock is the one who opens the wormhole using red matter. Is red matter connected to the angel suit somehow?
The burn.
Not that they ever explained that shit, but
yeah.
Well, mechanics makes me wonder.
We were wrong that Georgiou was not going to be sent back by the Red Angel suit. They got rid of that thing immediately, just shot it back into the wormhole to tell Spock that everything is hunky-dory on the other side. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Let's take a break. We'll play a quick clip, and then we'll come back. We'll just give some final thoughts about this one and call it a day.
Commander Burnham, now I'll tell you a secret. I'm not a commissioned officer. You see, my father was. His father before him. But unlike them, I was never officially sworn in. There has been no one to do it. Yet, I watch this office every day, as I have for 40 years, believing one day others like me would walk through that door, that my hope was not in vain. Today is that day. And that hope is you, Commander Burnham.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thepensky and support the show there. A couple dollars a month gets you extra stuff like extra podcasts. We have a Halloween thing coming up. If you become a $5 patron by Halloween, you're going to get access to our coverage of The Platform and TNG's Genesis. We're going to revisit that one as a horror episode. So you get a limited time offer. If you're not a patron by Halloween, you will never get to see them. Even if you become a patron after Halloween, they will be gone forever. So sign up before Halloween to get access to those.
No matter how much you plead with us, we're never going to let you see those episodes.
No, the burn is going to happen. What are you doing, buddy? Amy, can you grab him, please? So,
what if they had called it the ham?
Instead of the burn?
Yeah.
Ham it up. I'm distracted.
Well, I thought that they were going to connect the burn to Burnham because...
No, it's in the name, literally in the name.
Right. Yeah. I thought they were going to connect it. There was going to be some sort of realization because I feel like at the beginning, it started with her trying to say her name. She's like, my name is Lieutenant. She's like, I don't care what your name is. And then eventually I thought she was going to say her name and he's going to be like, what name did you say?
He dropped his canned tin of ham and it's just like the whole Kaiser Sose comes together. It's very much a Hodor moment.
A legend that's passed down for 1,000 years about Burnham. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, the flashback is just, it's going to be Pike just saying, Burnham, shut off the dilithium, and it becomes a Hodor thing of just like, burn.
It's a fragment of a transmission that just it's a Zardoz situation.
Yeah.
A fragment of a transmission. Burn. We don't know what it is, but we call it the burn. That's it. Become a patron if you want to support the show, support our Discovery coverage. Give me the strength to continue. Lay hands upon me like Michael Burnham will lay hands upon the Federation and bring it back. That's it. Let's see. Final thoughts about this one. I really watched this one just kind of a lot of eye rolling. I check my phone every action sequence. It's like, it's just, I'm waiting for something to come along to make me pay attention to it. And I feel the series never delivers a moment where I'm like, oh, okay. Like that's something worth holding on to. Yeah.
Everything feels very tangential, very ethereal. It just kind of comes along, it floats by you, and then it's gone. I think that people who are really into it really love the references in a way that they don't like references in Lower Deck. So Book here gives a lot of exposition. And he brings up a lot of references in his exposition. He mentions the Slipstream drive from Voyager. He mentions Temporal War from Enterprise. And I don't care for that. And I'm waiting for the show to grab something. I'll throw it to you with this question. The Temporal War outlawed time travel, which seems counterintuitive to the point of a temporal war, where it doesn't seem that you could ever do something like that and shut down time travel. That was the main takeaway I had from that point. I was like, I know the temporal war, Enterprise didn't give Discovery a lot to work with here because they gave them something that was shaky from the start, but it doesn't seem to me that you could ever effectively outlaw time travel, because in some timeline it won't happen and it will be there. So who knows?
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing is I guess we learned that the temporal Cold War eventually heated up into just a temporal war.
Yes. Daniels comes back. Unfortunately, I don't think we see that in Enterprise, but we have to assume it was really bad and they outlawed time travel. Everyone still knows about it. They just can't. And I also like that because it's illegal weapons are outlawed here in America, so I assume there are no illegal weapons anywhere that people are using. So good for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Nobody has stockpiles of illegal weapons anywhere.
Right. It's against the law. No one has this stuff if it's against the law, especially in this dystopian future where crime syndicates run wild. They pay attention to the law, obviously.
Yeah, if anything, they should be selling like time machines
powered by Dilithium.
Yeah. What did you think about the portable transporter thing?
It's fine. I'm shocked that Burnham thought it was that revelatory of a technology when to me it makes total sense and is not all that different from how a transporter works in the first place, you know? So it reminded me of Battlestar Galactica's 33 episode. That's about it.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, it didn't blow me away. It didn't make me want to kill myself. I'm interested to see what happens. I probably less interested at this point than I was after the first episode than I was after the first episode of season 2, I think. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I agree with you that there was nothing that stood out where I was like, oh, here's a really interesting idea that I can't wait to see somebody sink their teeth into. Yeah. It's just a lot. It's kind of stock stuff. And the only thing that's making me kind of excited is this idea that they're I don't even really know, honestly, what elements of this make me excited for the rest of the season. But I do know I have some questions. Did you watch the trailer at the end?
The season tease?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were some yellow shirts in that trailer. Are there people from the Enterprise that ended up on Discovery that made it through the wormhole jump? Because I caught like 2 quick shots of what looked like
yellow
Enterprise,
shirts.
Pike Enterprise shirts.
I don't remember that. I don't remember.
I might be crazy, but I'm almost positive I saw someone fighting what looked to be someone wearing a gold top.
Do you think there's just sort of a resurrectionist movement where people fetishize the old designs of Starfleet and they wear like the costumes and are trying to sort of bring back the Federation that way?
A cosplay culture?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, with it's Antifa.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I would put money on something more convoluted than that. But. Yeah.
It's the fake Batman from Dark Knight. It's the start of Dark Knight, sure. Right? It's like it's just regular Joes pretending to be Batman to sort of bring stuff back. And I
yelling Starfleet regulations at people.
That's right. It's like that Q&A episode. That's it. I guess we're done. Yeah, we'll see. People can try to give me inspiration or hope for this new thing, but to me it felt like a lot of the same of what Discovery does. I don't think they're interested in changing. I think that this is what this show wants to be, and if anything I felt it was heightened in some ways in this episode. Iceland looks beautiful. I like the production set design of the future, at least in terms of how the Federation and the ships look. Book is an interesting character that's a million times better than Ash Tyler. Maybe he's not an interesting character. He's not terrible like Ash Tyler, so I look forward to him being maybe something. The nature thing could come back to bite me in the ass. And other than that, just the vague, hopeful reverence for being faithful and not interrogative is really just a problem for me for this series. And it's just, I can only go through so many grand events on a galactic scale where it's restored through the faith of the heart before I just get a little bit tired of it.
Yeah. Also, you have all of these guest shots from all of these aliens from previous Star Trek shows that originate from a black market bartering place, and you don't throw in like 15 Ferengi.
I know, it's a good point.
How do you not put at least one in there?
Yeah,
that should have been run by the Ferengi.
It should. I know it should be. In some ways, the dystopian outlook of Picard feels like it's more in time than the 1,000 years necessary for Discovery to get there. You know what I mean? Like the way that the Federation is at the start of Picard kind of makes sense to me post-Dominion War, that things would end up that way, and post-Romulus destruction and stuff like that. So it's, I don't know, it felt the same to me. It felt like the Picard version is what this future is later on.
Yeah, like in Picard, the place that the Federation is in makes more sense for this type of story, where you've got the Federation has been moved into a darker, more militaristic place because of things that have happened. Yeah. And then you've got one person, whether it's Picard or someone who's like Burnham or whatever, who has this more idealistic vision of what the Starfleet is supposed to be about. So then you have a reason to push back. You have a reason for these, Starfleet originalists or whatever you want to call it.
And they don't touch on it in Picard, but the Picard reason for the Federation being where it is, they really don't touch on it besides lip service, is a more believable reason for why the Federation would fall that way. Like they can't get involved in this. They don't have the ships to spare. That's like, it's not our time. We have this android uprising, like stuff has just gone bad. It's not a poof, the dilithium blew up and everything changed. It's just more grounded.
Isn't it weird that, at least based on this first episode, this show, even though now it's 1,000 years in the future, still like doesn't want to really play with Star Trek stuff?
Yeah, they got rid of all the ships. They're like, here's a good reason to never show any ships. They all blew up.
Yeah, Picard at least, plays with the toys. Even if you don't like the game that they're playing with the toys. He's
also on the outskirts. He's outside Starfleet at that point. So you can kind of go like, well, he doesn't run into any Federation ships because he's operating on the outside of all that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, like, just the stuff that they're kicking around. It's like, they got the Borg, they got Romulans.
Yeah.
They've got Star Trek stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This show has always been so cagey about Star Trek stuff.
Yeah.
The whether it's the maybe that's not fair, because the Klingons in the Mirror universe are the centerpiece of the first season, but it just seems like the stories that they tell don't really have a lot of like Star Trek stuff in them.
Yeah. They don't feel important to it in some ways. Like,
it's weird. It's weird that the show started as a prequel, which hamstrung them from certain things they couldn't do within Star Trek boundaries, and now they've jumped into the future and they've erased all the Star Trek stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. All right, we'll call it a day there. Support the show at patreon.com/thepensky-file. If you're so inclined, it's much appreciated. And as always, our Captain tier supporters, I'll give them a quick shout out before we got to run. Christian Pouch, Tarek Latif, Chris Tinsley, Mike Burnett, Sean, Cardinal Doomsday, Joint Mango, Matt Cutler, Ben Douglas, Neil Brennan, Kyle Barrett, Samuel Custer, Nick Sergey, Bradley Killens, Matthew Ross, Rune Vendler, Nathan Ellick, Eric Johnson, Andrew Chola, Grim Santo, Poindexter G, Dwayne Hackett, Paul Roscoe, Jordan Cooper, Derek Zajac, Kevin Reyes, Fall 13 Hero, Stefan Minton, Nick the Rat, Darth Mosk, HH28, Mad Curry 6, Jacob 123, Mike Harris, Jakey's Gamer, Patrick Seba, Captain Brazen, Kevin Lowry, Eric Santuan, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, Timothy Cooley, and Zane Majors. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. Clay, do you have anything quick you want to plug before we go to run?
No, we got Roddenberry Picture Show came out this week doing the autopsy of Jane Doe, and then next week we got a new badass. I forget which episodes, but I'm sure they're great.
Mm-hmm. Go to thepenskyfile.com for those, or just subscribe on the YouTube channel.
And the following week after that is our Halloween episode of Roddenberry Picture Show, where we're going to be doing Fright Night.
There you go.
And if you're a patron, I think we're going to do a watch along that you guys can all join in on the night before the show.
Sounds good. Patreon.com/thepenskyfile. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Let us know what you thought about the first episode of Star Trek Discovery's third season. That Hope Is You, Part 1. And we'll be back after we raise the flag. We find someone commissioned in podcasting to do the recording for us. We'll be back and we'll do that. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. See you later.
That hope is you.